Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us. We are coming to you not on a real stream live, but at Real Live today. And yes, Michael Rudden and Greg Palast will be on today. Right after we start with the first part of the show, El Senor Palast will be on the second part of the show. We are hoping that this internet would last enough for this hour so that we can get it through, because right now it seems like with everybody in one place on the inside, they're having internet problems. Anyhow, title of the show today is Greg Palast, Vote by Mail May Re-elect Trump. Counterintuitive? I don't know. And also, no tears for oil companies in our failed state. No tears for oil companies, people. But beforehand, you guys have been hearing a whole lot of noise. People have been running around the country, open up the government, or rather open up the economy as if it was ever really closed. I mean, I think Daniel Cohen did a very good job at proving that, hey, the economy is on. It's just that essential workers are the ones that are having to endure what we're going through right now. But I want to play this piece because I like that the media is getting to the point now that it is welcome aboard, Bruce Pollard and Michael Rudden. Thank you so kindly if you guys are just joining us, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on Twitch, whether you're on Periscope. Please go ahead and share these programs. Please do it. The first thing that you do, I ask you so kindly. We need to get that done. Right now, most of our stuff is done on podcasts, etc. Rather, a lot of people listen on podcasts. We are exceeding 5,000 views on each of these episodes. But what we would like to do is have more live engagement. So please, folks, let's go ahead and get busy. Anyhow, I like that the news media is starting to get, listen to Katie Turner. I want you to listen to this and then we'll take it on the other side. Because what Katie Turner did here is exactly what they didn't do during the Tea Party movement. During the Tea Party movement, they had a small amount of people. They gave it camera angles that made it look bigger than it was, and that gave it some momentum to simply let most Americans believe, oh my God, it's big. Katie Turner is not allowing that. Check this out.
Vaughn Hilliard in Phoenix. Vaughn, the protest is set to begin a little bit later today. What are you hearing so far, and what are you expecting?
Katie, the rally here in downtown Phoenix, just outside of the Arizona State Capitol, is set to begin in about a half hour. To give this the appropriate context, though, so far what you see at this point here, it's about 200 folks, Katie. When you're looking at the greater Phoenix population, you're talking about almost 5 million people here. Over these last 3 weeks, the Republican governor here, Doug Ducey, issued stay-at-home orders now 3 weeks ago today. And when you go around the greater Phoenix area, there has been social distancing. For the most part, you would say that the grocery stores have been the busiest places to be. In conversing with folks out here, there's frustration with Doug Ducey. There is frustration within the administration, but not with Donald Trump. I was talking with one woman, Carrie, earlier here, who was here with her 4 children. She said that she's frustrated because 2 of her kids have special needs and relied on services provided by their school to assist her. She said, though, at the same time, she does not believe these numbers that are coming out of New York, does not believe the rate of contagion is any more than the flu. A lot of these theories that are pushed by the President of the United States. I was talking with the organizer here, Steve Daniels, and he told me that there needs to be a serious look within the administration towards Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci, making the suggestion that this is an effort within the administration to cause fear. And the folks here, most of who you see not wearing masks, are going to be pushing back there against that today.
Well, Vaughn, that is just plain dumb, frankly. It's just plain dumb. Dr. Redlener, I mean, it's just dumb. It's just dumb to call it the flu. I don't think any of us would be standing on street corners wearing masks if it was just the flu. Also, the flu has a vaccine. This does not have a vaccine. The flu is not as contagious as this seems to be, according to everybody that has experienced it. These protests, I hate to give them credence. I hate to give them attention because they are so small. But their message gets amplified on social media. Their message gets amplified by the President of the United States, who tweets things like liberate Virginia and liberate Michigan, and seems to egg these protesters on. They're not just putting themselves in danger, they're putting everybody around them in danger. Everybody at a grocery store they might go to, their family members still at home, their friends, their loved ones. It's not just an individual problem.
It's really unfortunate because it's not, as you point out, it's not just those people that will be in danger. It's the rest of society and the rest of us that will be impacted by a resurgence of this COVID virus, and we're almost undoubtedly going to get a second wave and a resurgence, and we'll speed up that resurgence if we start loosening up on restrictions before we have the testing and other things in place that we need.
Okay, and he's so right. You know, all these people are very, 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 very selfish. Folks, if you're just joining us, please remember, please go ahead and share these programs. Please go ahead and share it on your wall, share it everywhere. Anyhow, these people are so irresponsible, but you know what? You have to put the blame at the president, because if we are in a society where we give some credence to the president and as much as he deserves none, these people have trust in the guy. And that this guy is taking them to their demise, that this guy will be ultimately responsible for the deaths of many of their grandparents and to some, many of their kids. As it turns out, there was a child in Michigan today, 5 years old, became the youngest person who died of the coronavirus. Youngest person, 5 years old, brought it home, healthcare worker brought it home to her. So folks, let's remember this. Let's remember the good thing, the difference that we're seeing between now and the Tea Party movement is that then the media wasn't going out and making it fact that, hey, there are just a few of these guys out there that's being blown up to be more. And they didn't go out and say most of the things that those people in the Tea Party are saying are rather insincere and, to put it bluntly, lies and, bearing on ignorance. They never quite said that. Here, you heard her say right away, it's plain dumb. What they're doing is plain dumb. To have the media come out and say it is plain dumb. It is plain dumb. Anyhow, the title of the show today is Greg Palast, vote by mail, may re-elect Trump. That's what he believes. Second, and as well, no tears for oil companies in our failed state. Guess what, folks? Today, oil is trading at 0 or below in certain places. 0 or below. There's such an oil glut. So, folks, investigative reporter Greg Palast explains why vote by mail could re-elect Trump. Shed no tears for oil companies as prices crash. Oil companies never showed concern when they unseemingly enrich themselves on the backs of the poor, the middle class, those people who had to go to work every day, those people who drive long distances, and every day their prices go up. In effect, that is saying we are taking all this money from all the masses and enriching a few. And you know what? And as they know that it was causing pain, but they say, oh, the market dictates, right? The market dictates. Okay. These oil companies simply did what our soulless economic system preaches, supply and demand and whatever the market would bear. Well, now they are realizing that it is consumers who are the masters, as oil has become their cocaine. As oil has become their cocaine. So anyhow, folks, let's go ahead and go to, we haven't done this in a while, but, I think we should today. So guess what time it is, folks?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, here's the weekly blog post. And in actuality, I have two. But I'm going to start with the oil one. The price crash in the oil market should empower the masses for economic change. When business is great, read, sucking it to the customer. Corporations love to sing the supply and demand song as if it is a religion. But the reality is that we have an economic system where we have given them absolute power, in which they are allowed the whatever the market will bear moniker to reign, irrespective of how it hurts people. Oil companies, when demand is high, have no, and I want to put this on the screen because I also have a graph. So let's go ahead and do that. The article. Oil companies, when demand is high, have no restrictions on how much they charge the consumer. They take your money because they can. Even as that janitor, garbage collector, nurse, daycare worker, and many other budgets are strained, they do not care, nor do they give back rebates for their windfall. The thing is, they have not even been good stewards of their windfall. In other words, they've been collecting billions. They've been collecting billions. They haven't been good stewards of their own windfall. They redistribute their windfall to shareholders, high-paid executive bonuses, as even their employees are denied good medical coverage and a healthy working environment and a good salary and yada, yada, yada. In other words, the oil companies, when they are ripping you off, oil that takes anywhere from $2 to $10 to extract out of the ground, they were charging $50, $60, $100, $120 a barrel. And with that profit, did they say, let's put away a bunch for a rainy fund when something bad happens? They didn't do that. They gave all the monies out to them rich folk. They gave all the monies out to their executives for big bonuses and big plane rides and big, they were living the life. Viviendo la vida loca. Eso es lo que estaban haciendo. Viviendo la vida loca. That's what they did, right? So, they redistributed their windfall to shareholders, high-paid executive bonuses, and even the employees. They did treat them well. Now that people are home because of a pandemic, they want two things that they are channeling through our irresponsible commander-in-chief. They want stimulus money, and they want people to go back to work prematurely, risking their lives to refill their coffers. In other words, they are finally realizing we are the power, the people. The people are the ones that run this country, folk. But you see, we forget that because they enslave our minds. And as long as our minds are enslaved, they can do whatever they want, right? So, if one wants to see how much money there is in oil and the pilfer on consumers, just remember the volume we use, the volume of oil that is that we use, and the EBITDA of these companies. It stands for earnings before income, taxes, and dividends, and some other things, okay? But anyway, the reason I did EBITDA in gross gains or net income is because oil companies use all kind of machinations to make it look like they're not making as much money as they make, right? There's a sort of depletion allowance. I don't know if it's really there as much as it is anymore, but there are all these technicalities that they can take off to make it seem like they're not making as much profits. But when you look at EBITDA, if you look at EBITDA, you can say, okay, wow, these oil companies are making all that money. And check it out right here on the screen. That's a graph I have, or the table that I have, that showed the margins that these guys have is humongous. And all that money goes to a few people. So whenever you see gas prices are high, I want you all to remember this. When you see gas prices are high, remember nothing changed in what it costs them to produce it. It's just whatever the market will bear, supply and demand. If you want more oil, we can suck it to you. But there has never, ever in the last few years been a supply issue with oil. You know why? Because what they have done to keep prices high is create what's known as a false scarcity. What Donald Trump went on his interview, on his press conference and tried to do. When the flood started of oil, the glut on the market because people are using less, Donald Trump trying to rake a deal. Hey guys, produce less, so we can raise the price and suck it to the American people. Think about this. If you are in a recession, going into a depression, and that create an oil glut that drops the prices of oil, since less people are working, isn't that a good thing so that more people can go out there and find their jobs at a lower cost given they're making such little money in unemployment and otherwise? It's the humane thing to do. And even as inhumane as our unfettered capitalist system is, even the supply and demand theory works in that regards, in that, well, we don't have to, we have a lot more oil than we need, the price drop. People get a better deal. They get a chance to save more money. They get a chance to build their wealth instead of the wealth of the others. So, now, they want Russia, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, well, Venezuela is not a big player for now because they've done destroyed that economy. But they want all those people to stop producing. That's called a false scarcity. That is also called theft. And the reason it is called theft is you're playing with the market to force the masses to pay for something that is worth less than it is because you have held back supply. Now think about any other industry. They would call RICO laws, they would call all collusion laws, all these things, but no. The cartel can do it. They can suck it to you. And all the rest of Americans, too many Americans are there defending, oh my God, the price of oil have fell on those poor companies. Remember this, when those poor companies were making money, they gave you nothing. They decided they were going to keep that money for their executives and shareholders. Remember that. Remember that. They were giving their monies to the shareholders, a few people, and their executives, a few people. To hell with the poor people. To hell with the middle class mother who was trying to raise a kid. To hell with all of that. Think about it. That was what they did. Don't ask any questions. Just say it. Listen to it. People, watch it. Feel no sorrow. Now, I have a lot of friends in the oil industry, and I love them dearly. But, and those that are going to lose their jobs, I feel for them. Those that have taken advantage of these things, I can say, just count the blessings that you had while you received these great things from these companies. Now, what should we do? There are some interesting things that have occurred as we burn so much less oil. You can start seeing the skyline and the mountains in LA, in Shanghai, in Beijing. You can actually see the sky, you can breathe. Maybe we should learn that it makes sense for us to work doubly hard for the Green New Deal. Because the oil companies, as we are burning their product, we're not only not breathing good air, we're killing ourselves. And these same oil companies don't want the government to provide you Medicare for all. They're killing you, and then they want you to pay for your own health care for the burning the product that gave you the disease that they made. So please, no tears. No tears. You don't have to rejoice because there are a lot of good people working for the oil companies. I worked for the oil company before. My product, the oil companies bought my products in galore. I can legitimately say that much of what I got during my working years before I went full-time activism had partially to do with aerospace, but also oil companies. So, no one needs to feel any tears for them because none of us who work for them in the capacity of engineers, in the capacities of laborers, ever made what these people are making, what these people are ripping off from you. So no pain, no tears. Let them go through this alone and no monies for them. Let's continue. Oil companies deserve no assistance. When have they supported policies to make the lives of Americans better? In fact, one finds them to be anathema to most because it hits their massive profits. Assist Americans and let them vote for the companies that they want via where they spend it. And if the oil companies balk, nationalize the holy hell out of them. Again, I repeat, if the oil companies balk or try to do anything, because remember, they were flushed in cash. They deserve zero, zilch. Let those people that made all that money from the oil companies reinvest in the oil companies now that they are where they are. And if they attempt anything, like I said, nationalize the damn companies. If they attempt to do anything, and people, again, you be behind it. Because remember, when those prices are high, they had no support for you. They never supported you. Okay, second blog of the week is one titled, and I picked this up from a good source at The Atlantic. It was called I titled it, "The Coronavirus Revealed That America is Now a Failed State." And you know, it's a failed state because of who's running it, okay? But we can change that. So let me go with the blog of the week, because in about 8 minutes I need to get into talk to El Señor. Greg Palast is coming up next. So here's the deal. The coronavirus revealed that America is now a failed state. The Atlantic George Packer prescient article illustrated that we are a failed state led by the bastions of ineptitude. Most importantly, he points out several important realities. Packer's article, "We Are Living in a Failed State," goes into some detail of the train wreck we are now living in, and unfortunately, it continues. It goes like this. America has come to the realities of how dependent we are on those people so many look down on as doing menial work. I have always said one's garbage man is more important than one's stockbroker. He writes the following. We now have two categories of work, essential and non-essential. Who have the essential workers turned out to be? Most people in the low-paying jobs that require their physical presence and put their health directly at risk. Warehouse workers, shelf stockers, Instacart shoppers, delivery drivers, municipal supply employees, hospital staffers, home health aides, long-haul truckers, doctors and nurses are the pandemic's combat heroes. But the supermarket cashier with the bottle of sanitizer and the UPS driver with his latex drugs are the supply and logistic troops who keep the frontline forces intact. In a smartphone economy that hides the whole classes of human beings, we're learning where our food and goods come from, who keeps us alive. An order of organic baby arugula on Amazon Fresh is cheap and arrives overnight, in part because the people who grow it, sort it, pack it, and deliver it have to keep working while sick. For most service workers, sick leave turns out to be an impossible luxury. It's worth asking if we would accept a higher price and lower delivery so that they could stay home. Probably not. The pandemic has also clarified the meaning of non-essential workers. One example is Kelly Loeffler, the Republican junior senator from Georgia, whose sole qualification for the empty seat that she was given in January is her immense wealth, less than 3 weeks into the job. After a dire private briefing about the virus, and she got even richer from the selling off of stocks. Then she accused Democrats of exaggerating the danger and gave her constituents false assurances that may well have gotten them killed. Loeffler's impulses in public service are those of a dangerous parasite, a body politic that would place some like this in high office is well advanced in decay. Close quote. Parker goes into detail about all the failures of Jared Kushner while in business, that he became the point man for all of Trump's policies were astounding. He then closes on Jared as follows. To watch this pale, slim-suited detente breeze into the middle of a deadly crisis, dispensing business school jargon to cloud the massive failure of his father-in-law's administration, is to see the collapse of a whole approach to governing. It turns out that scientific experts and other civil servants are not traitorous members of the deep state. They are essential workers, and marginalizing them in favor of ideologues and sycophants is a threat to the nation's health. Close quote. Packer also reveals an inconvenient truth about the private sector versus the government. You see, efficiency may be good sometimes, but when an attempt to create efficiency at all costs, it becomes fatal. That's what he says here. It turns out that nimble companies can't prepare for a catastrophe or distribute life-saving goods. Only a competent federal government can do that. It turns out that everything has a cost, and years of attacking government, squeezing it dry and draining its morale, inflict a heavy cost that the public has to pay in lives. All the programs defunded, stockpile depleted, and plans scrapped meant that we had become a second-rate nation. Then came the virus and this strange defeat. You see, it's so important that we understand that. A failed state recovery depends on you. Hear me out. A failed state recovery depends on you. I am positive we're going to recover. Get rid of Trump. Get rid of the establishments and let the people reign. That's what's going to do it. We are in a failed state. Recovery will not start from the top. Our dysfunctional government won't change irrespective of a Joe Biden election or a Donald Trump re-election. The fact that those are our two choices when neither supports the real policies that will save the country is probative. We must work from the ground up. We must educate ourselves and understand that those on the top simply do not care in the aggregate. But what COVID-19 has shown is that we are the economy, which, while the rich, powerful, and well-connected are enriched on our backs, our worth is now apparent. We must not allow their ideologically oiled engines to reprogram us from showing them and seeing reality ourselves. In other words, we must not allow the COVID-19 pandemic to be used against us. In fact, we must use the COVID-19 against all of those who have been preaching the fallacies of an economic system that has always failed. It has always failed us. People are going to say, I see in the message here, Daniel Ledo says, why has it taken the most people out of poverty? It didn't take the damn most people out of poverty. What it did is taking some out of poverty was the consequence of inflating a few. But when that is complete, what we get is what we have now. Do not buy into the fallacies. We have built great downtowns around the countries. Millions of workers have built roads. Millions of workers have built statues. Millions of workers have built big buildings. Millions of workers have built big restaurants. And all of these are things they cannot partake of because they're not doing it for themselves. They're not doing it out of a social model where we all partake of the good things we are able to create. You see, most of us create and a few are able to take the spoils. Remember that. Most of us create. Our intellect, our labor, everything we provide. Don't forget that, people. Don't. It is you who's powerful. They have the semblance of power. That's all they have, the semblance of power. But the power lies with you. So please, don't let any of the posers tell you anything otherwise. But anyhow, folks, I hope you enjoyed those two blogs of the week. Right now, we have a very, very important person to introduce you to. So let's go ahead and let's get busy. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I have a very special guest with us today. We have the one and only. You know, I always say the one and only, but this time it is Greg Palast. And Greg Palast is coming today with a counter narrative. Who is Greg Palast? Greg Palast is that investigative reporter that has broken a whole lot of fraudulent vote calls, etc. He's the author of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. And in the link, you'll see a link where you should go ahead and get that book. But also, he has a new book out called How Trump Stole 2020. Folks, we're going to talk counter narratives. We're going to talk reality. Greg Palast, welcome aboard Politics Done Right. How are you doing today, sir?
Glad to be with you again.
Absolutely, sir. Hey, look, before we got live, I had to ask you, am I really understanding what you're saying, Greg? Is that really a counter narrative you're pushing? Talk to me about mail-in voting, sir.
Okay. Well, let me, in fact, rather, I'm going to channel Professor Barbara Arnwine,
Okay.
the greatest voting right lawyer in America from Columbia University, Jesse Jackson's counsel. And I'll just quote her. Mail-in balloting is a disaster for the African-American community. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Just because Agent Orange says that mail-in voting will hurt Republicans doesn't mean it's true. Because believe it or not, I know it's going to be a shock, but our president does not always get his facts right. But what happens is we go crazy. If he says no mail-in voting, we say everyone has to go to mail-in voting. Well, I'm not necessarily against mail-in voting. Well, actually, I am against mail-in voting because, are you ready for this? 22% of all mail-in ballots never get counted. Let me repeat that. 22%, that's from the MIT Caltech careful study of mail-in balloting. It is a nightmare, especially for young people and for voters of color. It is, now dig this. If that's,
Well, I want you to correct that. I mean, not collaborate, but tell me why. Why is it that 20% of them aren't counted?
well, here's the biggest one. You can't mail in your ballot if they don't mail it to you in the first place.
Okay.
And so what happens is, okay, African Americans, low-income people, young people move. Students move dorm room to dorm room. Renters and low-income people move from apartment to apartment in their neighborhood. Now, if you do that, you don't have to re-register. But if you don't, you're not going to get your ballot because it's going to go to the other address. Okay? Or they'll say, we try to send something to your other address and you will be purged. Now, here's the thing. In my book, How Trump Stole 2020, I bring out that 16.9 million people have been purged, voters have been purged from the voter rolls in the last 2 years. That's not a Greg Palast, that's not from under my hat. It is from the United States Elections Commission official figures, just short of 17 million people removed. If you're on that list of those people who've been purged, and it's about, those lists are about 2-to-1 Democratic. You're never going to get your ballot. You can ask one, you ain't going to get one.
Because you're not registered.
So what's happening is we've had this massive attack on the African American vote, on Asian American, Latinx voters, young people. It started in my book. In fact, the first chapter in my book is called The End, because Donald Trump was elected in November 2018, 2 years before we cast any ballots. Because in Georgia, they removed 340,134 voters that they said had moved out of Georgia, and they had gone nowhere, except their crime was voting while black, including, by the way, Christine Jordan. Christine Jordan, when I met up with her at the Atlanta polling station where they threw her out on her keister, is 92 years old. She is the cousin of Martin Luther King, who used to come over to her house after delivering sermons at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. And she was thrown out of the polling station because they said she wasn't there on the books anymore. Supposedly she'd moved. Well, she's been in that same house for 50 years. It's just that she started having her mail opened up by her niece because, again, she was 92, now she's 94. And she lost her vote with another 1/3 people. That's how Stacey Abrams lost the governorship of Georgia to Brian, the guy who actually removed people. He's the Purging General of Georgia. But that system is being run in Ohio, in Michigan. They're trying to push it, remove 250,000 voters in Wisconsin, which Trump won by only 22,000 votes. They're trying to remove 10 times that many number of black voters, mainly in Milwaukee. Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Arizona. These are
things you all document in your book, How Trump Stole 2020, right?
Yes. And what happens is you mail in. Okay, so if you're on the purge list, you're not going to get a ballot. If you're on what they call the mover list, you're not going to get a ballot. In 2016, How did Ohio go from Barack Obama in 8 and 12, and suddenly it's in the pocket of Donald Trump in 16? The answer is that 1,039,000 absentee ballots requests were never fulfilled. The Republican Secretary of State refused to send out over 1 million ballots of voters he called inactive, people he said didn't miss 2 federal elections. The federal law says you can't remove people for not voting, and the list is terribly inaccurate anyway. But anyway, there's 2-1 Democrats, overwhelmingly young people who are the big target at this moment. So, look, we may have to vote by mail-in ballot or we die. So I'm not saying don't vote by mail-in. I'm saying we better fix this system or Trump's good as reelected.
Now, I loved what you said. I think we've spoken before. You stated that because I complained about why is it that Democrats don't really see what's going on with voting. That I mean, if you're going bad at the voting booth, then how can you ever really expect to win? And you said I think you're working with Stacey Abrams right now, or you've worked with her. And one of the things that you said, she's one of the first politicians that you see had not just accepted losing, but stated, I won had it not been for the voter rolls.
That's right. Well, Stacey Abrams has hired my expert team. She has said she's the first Democratic politician I've ever heard say, I won. I would be governor of Georgia, but I won't be inaugurated because they use Jim Crow tactics to stop my voters from voting. And she particularly cited my team's findings and hired my team, in fact, to explain why 340,134 voters we know exactly, were wrongly removed from the voter rolls. And this system's going all over the country. The thing is, I want to tell you, in case you don't know it, Stacey Abrams is not white. It makes a big difference. What I've found is that, yeah, you've had, I'm working, as I mentioned, Barbara Arwine, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and others. The problem is that the Congressional White Caucus is not responding to the plea to protect the vote. And if we go to mail-in voting, we better do a lot to protect that vote. And, there's some good new bills out there from Senator Wyden of Oregon, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris. Okay, so like, for example, Senator Kamala Harris's bill is a good idea, which will protect mail-in voting, but it includes, she's emphasizing drive-up voting, which is a very California thing. Like, you think everyone in California, we all have cars here. Right. But if you're talking Detroit and you're talking Milwaukee and you're talking Charlotte and you're talking, Cleveland.
Where's mass transit? It's not really places where people have a lot of cars like California or Texas.
So for example, Ohio, first of all, there should be laws against, and we have to go on a legal attack against not mailing people their mail-in ballots. Second, mail-in ballots should be forwarded. If you move, because you don't have to re-register if you're in the same neighborhood, and millions and millions and millions of young people, especially, and low-income people move every year, or move every couple of years, and they're going to lose their ballot. As Senator Wyden said, why can't we just download the ballot? Now, you can only submit one. You have to
shoot.
Why? What is this game? Plus, we now have the technology. We can mail you electronically a ballot that's personalized to you, or why can't you ask for a ballot online? Very few states allow you to simply ask for your ballot online. You have to respond to a postcard that you may never get.
Greg, I was, one of the things after you started to talk about why mail-in ballots not implemented appropriately could be a clear and present danger to voting, I wanted to say, do you have a list of solutions that we need to follow to ensure that if we had to go to mail-in voting, that this will work? I mean, you just started to enumerate them there, and I'd like to have that list of what we need to tell our activists. These are the things that you need to propose both in your local jurisdictions and nationally if you believe mail-in vote is where we're going to.
Okay, let me give you the policy the policy fixes that we have to have. Number one, simple: postage prepaid envelopes. We lose over 100,000 ballots to postage due. Like in Ohio, they have one little square where you're supposed to stick a stamp. Well, if you don't put 2 stamps on, your vote ain't going to get counted. Most ballots require 2 or 3 stamps. They're big. So don't forget to put on your postage, but we should have it. About half the states have postage paid. That's number one. Number two, you shouldn't have to answer a postcard to get your mail-in ballot. In California, I can go online and ask for a mail-in ballot. In fact, California has a system that we should all adopt, which is, we call it mail opt-out. In California, you get a ballot in the mail unless you specifically ask to go into the precinct. So we reverse the process. In most states, you have to ask for a mail-in ballot. California reverses it. You get a mail-in ballot unless you go online and say, no, I really want to take it into the polling station. That's really, really important in this general election. People should not have to hunt down and figure out how to get that mail-in ballot and look for it in their mailbox, and it may not get there. The post office has been horrible and about dropping off the requests for mail-in ballots and then the mail-in ballots themselves in the inner city. We lose up to 20% of those ballots. Never even get to the voter, Egberto. Never get to the voter. So how do you mail it back?
Right, exactly right. So, Greg, this is counterintuitive or a counter argument, because I think if you listen to and let me ask you something. Do you think you said, well, Trump doesn't know, or a lot of things that Trump says isn't right? Do you think just like he suckered, in my opinion, the Democrats into giving him Biden, that he's probably suckering them into this voting thing, mail-in voting as well?
Well, whether he's suckering them or he's just, the usual thing, like he's just making it up as he goes, I don't know. But we have to be very, very careful. Just because Trump says it doesn't mean it's true. So be very, very careful. When he says Republicans will get wiped out if there is voting by mail. But I will say he's kind of sly. He seems like not the smartest knife and not the sharpest knife. But be very careful. He says if the Democratic proposals for mail-in balloting go through, Republicans.
Oh, right.
So be very careful. It doesn't say mail-in balloting. See, because here's the thing. Mail-in balloting, as it's currently constituted, are you ready for this, Egberto? In Wisconsin, which is the ultimate swing state this year, Wisconsin, you have to have a witness sign your ballot. And we're talking right now in Wisconsin, in the last election, who said, it went off okay. 140,000 ballots were rejected. 140,000.
In Wisconsin alone?
In Wisconsin alone, 140,000 ballots were rejected last week. Why? Because, and it's all kinds of reasons, but the big one was mail-in ballots without a witness signature. Now you got a witness signature in a lockdown, and 3 states require that you have your mail-in ballot notarized. Notarized. Okay, so you can see the disaster that happens, especially among students and others who, like young people don't even deal with the U.S. Post Office. They don't know what a stamp is, and they've got to look for their mail. I know that my kids in college they check their mailbox about once a year on their campus. They have a mailbox. Right. Uses mail, and so seriously, we laugh about it, but young people have really been shafted on the mail-in ballot, the absentee ballot problem.
Okay, Greg, tell me a little bit about your book. What when people get your book, what are they going to do? What are they going to find?
Okay, so if you go to get more information, obviously at gregpalast.com, but my book, How Trump Stole 2020. Now, he's already stolen the ballots. Mm-hmm. They've already eliminated 17 million people. They've already got the rules in place to wipe you out and prevent you from getting your mail-in ballot or prevent you from voting. So we can steal it back, though. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just telling you what's happened. So they've stolen so Trump and his cronies have stolen 2020. Now you can kind of take it back. You can say, stop thief. And by the way, Egberto, it's not whether I'm for or against Donald Trump. Vote for who you want. You want Agent Orange as your president? You want some, bloviating bigot as your commander in chief? That's your choice, America. We're a democracy. But You shouldn't have to. The person in the White House should be the one that's elected by the people. And we've got to stop this. We have very sophisticated new Jim Crow tactics being used and some old things. But this new system taken out in Georgia of purging voters en masse, of blocking voters who mail in their votes and not sending you your ballot. I go through all this. And by the way, I hate to say it, I had to go through some of the nasty stuff that the Democratic Party pulled off. I have a chapter called California Riemann about how in this past election, Bernie Sanders was shafted out of 553,000 votes.
I read your article about that a few weeks ago.
You know, so it's like, unfortunately, Democrats have their hands a little dirty. It's okay that I don't have gloves. I'm in my house. But maybe I need gloves for my house. But their hands are a little dirty. They're dealing with elections without gloves or masks, so to speak. So we've got a problem. We have to protect our own vote. And by the way, everyone listening, please check your own registration right now. Go to vote.org or see if
the state, vote as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and Rock the Vote. Any of these places will tell you, or you go to your county clerk's website. See if you're registered. Say, I've been voting the same place 30 years. Yeah. Ask Christine Ford, Martin Luther King's cousin, same polling station, 50 years. I was there when they threw her out. So how Trump stole 2020. By the way, it includes, very, very important, it includes a comic book, 48-page comic book by the wonderful and courageous investigative comic artist, Ted Rall. And why do we do this? Why do we make a short book that has a lot of humor about a really, frankly, tragic subject, stealing your vote and the new Jim Crow voting systems that they have? While I use a lot of humor, you're going to get a lot of information on exactly how they have been taking votes state by state and how we can protect our votes and kind of take back our democracy. So it's not an accomplished deal if we do something about it.
So what's next? I know you're kind of locked up in your house right now. What's next for Greg Palast? What's the next great big investigative report after?
Well, the book, by the way, you can order it now from Usual Suspects, but it won't come out till June 2nd. But it will tell you. See, I went to Wisconsin just before the lockdown, and remember, this is the swing state of swing states. And you'll see so I'm going to be making the film for The Guardian and others to about the theft of Wisconsin, and then we're going to go state to state as we have a film from Ohio and North Carolina and other swing states, Georgia, which should be a swing state because it's now a minority majority state. So I'm going to be digging into state by state, and luckily I filmed so much of this and did so much of the investigation before the lockdown.
You have a lot of footage.
Out stories.
Now, are you going to release this as one long movie, or are you going to release it in sections the way The Guardian does it sometimes?
Two pieces. There'll be we're going to put out report after report. As you know, I work with a lot of outlets and love to work with you. We're going to get it out there piece by we'll do each state, Wisconsin, Ohio, and others, to illustrate Michigan, to illustrate each way that they jack with the vote. And then ultimately there will be a longer film. One of the problems is, frankly, we got to go ahead from Netflix, and of course everyone's shut down. Yeah,
that is amazing. But you're doing, Greg, let me tell you, you're doing great work. I follow you. I link to gregpalast.com all the time. And folks, all of you that are listening here, you should be linking to gregpalast.com. And one of the reasons why is in our mainstream media, we don't get the detailed coverage of what ails the nations. We get all the frills, we get all the things that make you happy. There's a whole lot of stuff happening right now. Greg Palast, give me a closer.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Look, I'm going to tell you, I wrote How Trump Stole 2020. Don't despair. You can steal it back. You can protect your vote, your democracy. But you don't know, you can't stop the thief until you catch him in the act. So get How Trump Stole 2020. See you at gregpalast.com.
Greg Palast, investigative reporter and author of many books, including How Trump stole 2020. It's been my pleasure to have you on Politics Done Right. And you know, there's an open door here, man. You come all the time because we need your info, my brother.
Well, thank you very much for kind of getting me around the electronic Berlin Wall of the mainstream press here. I'm
Absolutely.
mainstream in the rest of the world, but in my own nation, it's kind of hard to tell people your democracy ain't exactly as you sell it to the rest of this planet.
Thank you so kindly, Greg.
You're very welcome. Great work. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Greg Palast, he's been working at this for a very long time. He was also in Venezuela and many other places. Anyhow, we are coming to the end of the show. If anybody wants to call in, you can call us at 646-716-5812. Again, that is 646-716-5812. Let me run through some of these. I'm not going to get to all of them. Bruce Pollard, welcome aboard, my brother. Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard as well. Rudnin says if one of them has coronavirus, then half of them have. No kidding, buddy. Bruce Pollard, so if it was properly addressed 2 months ago, we could have been ready to treat it like it is and have a 2-month lead on a vaccine. You're so right. And not only that, there's a good chance we wouldn't have had to shut down the country, just like Ebola got isolated sufficiently so that we didn't have a problem with people working all over the world, except in the area where it had the concentration. Shaw H. Burrows says, I'm sorry if they're that dumb not to wear masks, then maybe we don't need them. Oh, that skull sound like my daughter. So if it was properly addressed to, no, I got that one already. Let's see, Michael Rudnin. Burroughs, they're not the only ones who will die from their stupidity. They'll bring it home, bring it to their neighbors, etc. And that's the problem. When my daughters told me once, Dad, natural selection, I said, yeah, but they also sneeze, which means that sneeze could hit you. Daniel Ledoux, care to share the important info on the little girl in Michigan? She had several underlying conditions, but that doesn't forward your lies, right? Does it? She died, and she died because she got coronavirus. Okay, let's be frank now. Had she not had coronavirus, she would not be dead. Period. All right. Wolfman's elbow fetish. You're such a shrill. Oh, okay, whatever that means. Daniel Ledoux replying to Bruce Pollard, yeah, and if the doctors had strangled Hitler when he was born, they could have saved millions of lives. Believe it or not, that's true. All right, Bruce said incompetent, so right. Daniel Ledoux says, finally, Egberto is finally taking on the Saudis and the Russians. Oh, really? No, actually, I think the people who love the Saudis and the Russians is our president. Check out who he hugs and who he deals with. Then he says, yeah, capitalism is so inhumane it has lifted millions out of poverty. Oh, and that was just a byproduct of enriching a few. And when it was over, they just said, to hell with you now. Come on, Ledoux. That's so old. Bruce says, I think we lent all our reserve storage space to Exxon. Yeah, I think so, man. Joseph Ojeda says, the economy was going to tank because the U.S. can no longer sell its costly fracking oil, which costs a minimum of $54. And that's a very good point, dear Jesse Luis Ojeda. That is a very good point. They need to have these high prices for fracking to make sense. But why will you even frack if you can actually get the oil cheaper elsewhere? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Anyhow, Daniel says we're killing ourselves, except we live longer than we ever had. No, we actually the first time, and especially for white people, they're starting to live longer lives. Read some, please. It doesn't hurt to read. All right. Josue Ojeda says the American government wanted to destroy the economy of Venezuela, Iran, and Iraq, and Libya. You know what they say? When you start digging a grave, sometimes you must dig two. Sometimes when you're digging a grave, you must dig two. Daniel Ledoux says, wonder if Egberto thinks journalism needs a bailout. No, it does not. It just needs people to listen and people to... Actually, let me go ahead and I am glad you brought up that stuff about money. Folks, I'll go ahead and read the others later and answer them if answers are required. But anyhow, I want to remind all of you that this is a program that needs your support. Please go to store.politicsdoneright.com. Again, that is store.politicsdoneright.com. If you get our T-shirts, our cups, all the things that we have, I use my cup here to hold some of my little my little pens and stuff. And you can also go and get a book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. You can get that at Amazon.com. But if you want to take out the middleman, go ahead and go to store.politicsdoneright.com. I'll send it to you. And I tell you what, I'll even send you a signed copy if you ask for it. So go ahead and get it online at store.politicsdoneright.com. You can also get those t-shirts that you see on the screen, the cups that you see on the screen. But more important than anything else, what I really need is your support as subscribers. So please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. I mean, it's like buying a cup of coffee for your friend once a month. I know you would do that. Or a couple of cups of coffee once a month. I know you would do that. So please consider becoming a subscriber at patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. You can also contribute at paypal.me/politicsdoneright. Again, that is paypal.me/politicsdoneright. I hope you enjoyed the program. We put a whole lot into making sure we get this stuff out to you. And not only that, we want to remind you that this is absolutely, patently your program. And if you have input that you want to provide, please remember to do so. You can always call us at 646-716-5812, or you can reach us at info@politicsdoneright.com. info@politicsdoneright.com. But most importantly, please become subscribers at patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. This is Egberto Willies, Politics Done Right. You know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out. I'm Egberto Willies, host of Politics Done Right, an independent news program. I post several news videos of interest every day. I ask you so kindly to subscribe to my channel, and please leave me some comments. Thank you very much.